So you've been a Stab in the Dark bridesmaid a few times, but never a bride. What does it feel like to win Stab in the Dark finally?
Even the blind bird gets a worm every once in a while. It's great. You know, you're there. It's the guys that I respect, you know, all the good shapers, you know, the Darren Handleys, the Channel Islands, the JS, all these, you know, guys that we're all kind of in this tight little game, you know, and it's really hard to deal with these fantastic surfers and the stress and the pressure that they're under, and you know, you're there to provide something for them that they can rely on. So we all know how hard it is. You know, it's not like making a mid-length bonzer to go like do soul arches on. There's a lot of pressure.
Dane, you've been a diehard Channel Islands lifer for a very long time, but you've dabbled with some other people's boards. What is your experience with Mayhem's boards?
I got a few boards from you, what, like 5, 6, that was probably like 10 years ago now. It happens quick. But mostly Stab in the Dark is where I've ridden your boards definitely the most.
I've heard rumor of a mysterious quiver that you purchased but never rode that ended up underneath all your friends' feet.
No, that's not necessarily true, no. No, I ordered a bunch of boards from you and I had like a knee injury and hadn't surfed in forever, and by the time I even had stickered them up, there was like all these rumors in the glass shop at CI, and I texted you what was going on, and you're like, I knew it was a bad idea, like, give them back.
Did you give them back?
No, I didn't give them back, I wrote them. Yeah, no, they're sweet. I wrote them a bit.
I remember, it seemed like you sent me a couple of texts like a few years ago, and you're like, oh, this kid, Aton, he could use some good boards. And I'm like, tell your friends at Channel Islands, he belongs on Channel Islands, and it looks like he's doing great ever since then. So.
Dane, what signature features or dead giveaways is proper to Mayhem?
That's actually funny in the context of the film though, because I thought that 100% the board wasn't yours because it didn't have the nose that, and then you mentioned that you changed the aesthetic of the nose to.
Just because I'm sick of you guys always being able to guess them. Yeah. So I just did like a little.
It's definitely like a, like, you know, in Mayhem when you look at it, the nose especially.
Tried to hide it.
Yeah, the new, I kind of dug the new, like, more tubular, like, thick tip.
So how would you describe the flip tip in your boards? Where does that come from?
I mean, I don't know, Channel Islands, 1991, you know, it's just like, whoa, this is the future right here.
But they always hack the tip off.
Yeah, they do.
And you went for the
thing. For better or for worse, sometimes I get a little too, like, worried about the aesthetic, you know, like just making it all and overshape it and chip it out, but kind of treat it like art and less technical, you know, like some shapers are way more technical, like Xanadu, who I idolized for a long time, is just so technical. He's like, Matchy, you need to take more measurements, be more attention.
He had the bizarre nose.
Yeah.
What was the theory there? Just a different look.
Shock and awe.
Yeah.
Known formerly as Mayhem, the business mogul and ringleader of the Lost generation has finished in the top 3 consistently since the first Stab in the Dark, but never taken top honors.
What is it like for you building a quiver with these 3 identified surfers in mind? Can you walk us through the process of designing those 3 boards?
Well, you gave us 4 boards, and they were so varied from 6'2" to a little one. It was pretty hard to guess who it was, you know. Figured the big one would probably be Jodie, but I don't know. The thing is I was in Australia when they finally pulled the trigger, and I was with the guys that build our boards there, and I'm like, hey, I'm here with my family on vacation, and so I just started going down to the factory in Currumbin and working with the team there, Wayne Lowen and Sasha, and just we got to make some Stab in the Dark boards. We got to do it right. So we made a few, and then recut them and changed them and looked at them and like, okay, I like these, and the team liked them. Okay, let's get Tony to glass them, and because we've already done it 3 or 4 times and we've never won, and I've always like got to be all stressed and do my latest and greatest board, and we just kind of loosened up and went for it, and it seemed to work. The guys like the board.
How many boards do you shape before you settle upon the boards that you send to Stab in the Dark?
This time I think I did the 3 boards twice. So I made 3 and looked at them, and I think maybe the big one, the Jodie one, we just did once. And I remember the middle one, which ended up being his. I know that one we did 2 or 3 times. And then maybe the 510, which was mixed, we maybe did once. But I think we made 5 or 6 boards to get 3. And it was really quick. It was like in 2 days, and like I said, I was on the Gold Coast with my whole family, and I didn't want to stress over it. We just kind of did it.
Thanks for letting us interrupt your family vacation. You have like a fairly healthy competition with the guys who have won Stab in the Dark before, especially Pizel and Darren. Have you talked to Darren or Pizel, any of those guys since winning?
Pizel was the first text I got congratulating. The competition, it's like any other. If you run Ford and you relate to the guy who runs Toyota pretty damn well. You're in the same nightmare, you know. So it's a good competition, you know.
Well, congratulations, Matt.
Thank you.
It's pretty radical.
You know, I mean, the great thing about it is Sam and you guys, the team here at Stab. It's like the reverence and the respect and the dedication you give to surfboards and professional surfing, and you know, it's just no one's really doing it. It's unprecedented, and to put guys like us on a pedestal rather than just these big corporate companies, you know, it's really a testament to the program that you guys run, and I respect it a lot. So thank you.
It's a celebration of the craft.
Yeah.
I agree in the way of making unique content. No, there's no surf magazines anymore. It's cool that Stab is putting time and effort into projects like this and storytelling, and I also have a tremendous respect for the shapers that are putting in the effort.
And you reward creative surfing. You know, it's like these great surfers, and if they're not on the tour grinding it out an event every 2 to 6 weeks, everybody wants to see Mick surf. Everybody wants to see Dane surf. So it's really special. You know, people get to see these great surfers perform, and yeah, it's good for all the brands. Even if they pick a brand they don't normally ride, it's good for everyone. Like, you know, grow the pond, you know, not the fish.
Dane, for you, this is your third sort of blind test that you've done with us. How was this one for you compared to the other projects that you've worked on? And what was it like with Mick and Jodie?
I had a lot of fun, but I had a really frustrating trip as far as surfing wise. Never felt like I got in rhythm, and it was really kind of odd because traveling to South Africa is gnarly, and you get there and then you start riding random boards and you're not surfing very good for a few days. And then you don't really have that constant in other experiments to go back to, like a board that I bring that I just know that I can rely on and like go back to know if it's like you or the boards or whatever. And then we move locations, and then I'm like struggling here, and it looked like you guys pulled together a cool project, and like there was some cool storytelling and stuff. But the electric acid surfboard test was easy because it was so easy to just say something shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so easy to say something shit when Jodie is fucking ripping on it. But then he comes in and he has his notepad of jokes and says it's shit too. And I left really bummed because I stayed an extra day for like the pumping surf. Yeah. We tried to change my ticket and it was gonna be like $3,000. Sam's like, I've done this a bunch of times. You just show up, you play dumb. They'll feel sympathetic for you. They'll get you on the flight. I show up and it was just absolute no, instant no. So then I'm like going to ticketing counters and on my phone end up buying a one-way flight for $2,000, like middle seat, like the gnarliest flight home. Still though, you can't complain. It's just going to South Africa and surfing all day.
How different are the boards? Everything's pretty damn similar.
The Pizel this year was just bizarre. I don't know really what he was going for, and I would actually like to spend some time on that board because it's really drivey but kind of wild. Like you didn't feel like you had control of it ever. But sometimes those end up being the coolest boards if you spend a week on it and decent surf, and you're like, whoa, this like. And then your board had this weird lift out of the tail. The first time I rode it, I couldn't figure it out. Like sometimes when boards have a lot of concave, like right in front of the back fins, it like feels like it has this lift out of the tail. And I was like kind of struggling, and Jodie and Mick just clicked right in and we're just ripping on it. I just was like,
well, I better figure it out.
I just felt like shit. No, I felt awful. The Merrick felt like a Merrick, but it was just too small for me. And then the Pukas was pretty different. I don't know, they're, for being 6'0", 19, 2.5 or whatever they were, and just like meant to be a performance shortboard, they actually is quite a bit of variation.
It's interesting that you guys can take them apart so well, but that's the level of your surfing. On a funny side note, as after electric acid, we moved the leash plug on our retrofish. We moved it from the center stringer over to the swallow.
Oh yeah.
So the rippers could get their foot back further. Yeah, we had a company-wide meeting. Dane says we got, so we had to move that leash plug. I had to change all my production CADs and call everyone around the world. And
I love fishes, but the swallowtails, you just can't get your foot right and back on the tail. I wish this deck pad could get way back on the tail because I feel like I want to step over this back quad fin, but I can't get far enough back. This thing's trippy. If you look at my footprint, it's right here. That's where my heel goes. That's where my toe goes. Still no bueno.
You don't base your boards off how they look on Instagram. You base it off the performance and the feedback from the best surfers, and that's the most important thing.
Did this quiver of boards vary the most out of all of the other Stab in the Dark quiver that you had?
The other Stab in the Dark quiver was 12 boards, so there's that much more to pick from. Actually, I do think they varied a bit more. The Pukas was pretty different from anything I've ridden. Like, it had these like real extreme nose rocker, which nobody liked the way it looked. Like, everybody's picking it up like, ew. And then this like long flat spot, and then like a kink and like hips, and then the DHD had like a weird high stringer in the center with like a deep concave and hips and a really wide nose. It's all, there's kind of a bit of variation, more so than before. Your board, the JS, what else was there? I don't know, those were like ones that you just like pick up and they feel like just like a real normal good. Well, the DHD was pretty weird, I thought.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah, you've also got it.
High stringer.
Yeah.
Britt's been making me boards with high stringers
Feel mine.
too.
Mine's pretty enhanced.
I think that's a thing. I think it is. He obviously intended to do it. Like, he's not stupid. Is there anything to the high stringer?
We had, Darren made Chloe a few boards this year, and Chloe brings me, he's like, these things are interesting. I'd like to take some influence from these and put them into my normal boards. He's like, feel that double concave. I'm like, that's not double concave, it's just like a high stringer.
Is that on purpose, or is there?
I mean, a double concave through the fins, it breaks up the water. Sometimes they're less sucky on the wave.
the tiny little like lump on the stringer.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to ask Darren. I'm sure he can spin it to some sort of positive.
Well, that's interesting though, because I've been getting boards from Britt with high stringers that work good. Yeah. I don't know if he's intending it or not.
But the Pizel was the most like sort of experimental seeming board. Because go through like some of the more like odd characteristics of that board, as far as like.
I mean, it almost felt like a mini gun, like the board's like a wizard sleeve. Not really a wizard sleeve, but like a 6.0 that's meant for like 8-foot waves. Like real straight rocker, like foam forward, kind of a like felt like the wide point was forward, and it carried momentum really good, but it felt like it had a mind of its own. But it had this like really cool momentum. I don't know, it just felt like
I mean, he's had so much success. He did Stab in the Dark twice, the whole phenomenon with John, and he's had a lot of success. And it's kind of like, sometimes you get bored and you just have to push it. You want to do something different. You have to push the limit. Kind of like you talk about Mick Jagger, like having sex with men. He wasn't gay, he was just bored of women.
So the winning model, is that going to be put into production next year?
We got the dialogue and said it has to be a new model. And we were looking to update and do like a shortboard. The last time I released a new shortboard was the Driver Proformance in early 2017. And I was like, we've done so much work with Griffin, Kolohe, Carissa, and some of the others that we feel like the current performance shortboard we were making for our WCT team was so different than what we were putting on the racks. Like, we got to do an update. We got to like make some noise and show it to people. So in July, when the Stab in the Dark came, that was kind of mid-development of the Driver 2.0. It's a boring name, but updating the Driver. Basically wrapped around kind of the boards that Griffin was really liking. Chloe's boards sometimes tend to be a little more extreme, a little stiffer, a little harder for some people to ride.
Can you explain what the Driver is?
Yeah, there's basically kind of two sort of schools of high performance boards, and one school tends to have more tail rocker and a lower entry, and the other one is the opposite. The outlines are usually pretty similar. There's either a hip or there's not a hip. This board that we did for Stab in the Dark has a very minimalistic hip, where most of my boards, like Trussell's boards, we've always kind of been known for having a nice wide hip.
Who figured out that a break in the rail line right there is like where it should be?
Yeah.
No, it's who figured it out.
Who figured it out? I don't know. Probably Al. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you look at
with like the triplane.
Simon Anderson.
Yeah, the original thruster it's almost like a wing hip, but like
the Simon. Yeah, they had the hip and the wing to break it off,
like
but that board was so flat rocker.
Because wings were before.
Yeah. Greg Weber.
And are those hips and that curve? Is it you guys always try and keep that at the very front of the front fins?
Yeah, it's just kind of, you line it up with the fins. It's pretty hard to find a bump squash shortboard with 3 fins before the Simon Anderson. Even that outline of his, it's pretty hard to find that outline before the Simon Anderson. Yeah. So you really got to give a lot of credit to Simon. And then he went out and won events on it,